I've already given you some of my best stories. I don't know if I can remember them again. Once they're out, they kind of go away,
I'm going to leave this question.
Sorry.
No, that's great. Where are you from?
I was born in San Francisco, grew up on the East Coast until I was about 10 years old, then came back out to the West Coast, and so basically junior high school through college. Then I was the Bay Area, and then I went to LA. I knew since I was 13 that I wanted to work in the film business.
How'd you know?
I think it started off with a love of the imagination of Disneyland. And when we moved cross country, I saw Disneyland, and that was pretty exciting for the first time, because I was a little kid. I was 9.5 years old. And it's not the Disneyland you know today. It was the old, original Disneyland. And then we took a family vacation to visit my grandmother who lived in Texas. And we swung back through LA, and I went to the Universal tour, which again is not the tour that you know of today. But it was at that point when we did the backlot bus, which is still in existence, that it just sort of hit me. Now, I didn't know how I was going to do it. And my father, my family wasn't the kind of family where you suddenly announced, I'm going to Hollywood. So it was met with some skepticism and scorn for quite some time, but it all worked out.
What was your first film job?
My first film job? Actually, I was an extra. I played a surf punk in a movie called Surf 2 with Eric Stoltz, Corinne Bohr, Eddie Deason. Oh God. But, at the time it was a bunch of up-and-comers. And there was no Surf 1. It was a sort of a parody on surf movies. And I spent my days dressed up in a wetsuit held together by safety pins and chains. And I had a yellow mohawk. So that was and I still run into Eric. I haven't talked to him probably in 10 years, but every now and then I would run into him and say, hey. So that was kind of fun.
How difficult has your path been to get to where you are now?
Well, it's interesting. My path, I've thought about this a lot lately because I'm not too sure what kind of advice to give young kids these days. I've been doing this since the late 80s. I did a stint as a bartender and all that kind of stuff, but my first job in the business, behind the scenes, was as a receptionist at MGM. And I took advantage of the situation. We were in a building where MGM had just moved off the MGM lot and was in a 8-story building across the street from it. And the way it was set up was the 4th floor had all our independent producer deals, both television and film. And these deals don't really exist so much anymore. But back then, if you were a producer that had potential or you knew somebody, you get an office, you get an assistant, you get some overhead, and it was a first look deal. So any projects you found, you brought to the studio first, and if they didn't like them, you can take them other places. And you might even get some payroll out of it, some salary. Everything was put against the show if a show ever got made. So what I did was I got a job as a receptionist, and the first week I went downstairs to the 4th floor and I knocked on every single producer's door and asked if they wanted a reader. A reader is somebody who would read the scripts and do coverage, which is like a small book report. It's about a synopsis, it's a page to a page and a half in length, and then it's anywhere from half a page to a page of comments on character, dialogue, plot, structure. And the front page was always a log line, who the script, the title, who it was written by, where it came from, who it was for, what your name was, a log line of what the, a 1, 2, 3 sentence, TV guide blurb. And then at the bottom was the deadly checkbox, where it was basically, story, plot, character, dialogue, and it was excellent to poor. And you had like 4 places where you check the boxes. Now, understand that I was doing it for free. And a lot of times producers would read this coverage and decide whether or not they were going to read the script based on my opinion. and I had just started being a receptionist at MGM. But I knew what story was. I'd gone to film school and all that, but you know, that's been pointed out a couple of times as one of the flaws of the Hollywood system. That, you know, you're putting a lot of faith in somebody who might, as a freelance reader, when I did that, you got $40 a script. So somebody who's getting $40 to read a script and then give notes, you know, the producer may look at it and see, you know, this guy thinks it's poor, 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 poor. He'll never read it. He'll call up the agent, nah, I'm gonna pass, it's just not right for me, not even having read the script. So that ended up allowing me to read for people like Norman Jewison, a guy by the name of Bob Swain, who was a director, the Sokolos, it was a husband-wife team who did a lot of TV and were doing features. And after about 5 months, the CEO of the film side of MGM, we had TV and film, needed a new creative executive. And because Bob Swain's vice president, a woman by the name of June, had been a VP for Laddie, Alan Ladd Jr., I got an interview. And one thing led to another. I got the job, and I started being a creative executive for the CEO, for one of the guys who probably, prior to MGM, had the richest producing deal in the history of Hollywood. He's the guy who greenlit Star Wars at Fox, did Norma Ray, did Julia, Three Women, ended up doing Blade Runner, The Right Stuff, Police Academy, the series of that, and that was with the Ladd Company, Outland, Mike's Murder. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. He probably got, his movies probably got nominated for more Oscars than anybody else in the 80s. So one thing led to another. A year and a half later, I was director of creative affairs. We left MGM, went to a studio called Pathé. Pathé then bought MGM. We came back to MGM. And I was there until he left, and then shortly after I left. So that was kind of the beginning. So I was lucky, but it was a lot of, I define luck as preparation meeting opportunity. And so, I went to those producers and asked if they needed a free reader. And I probably read, in that 5-month period, I probably read 200 or 300 scripts. And overnight was doing coverage for these people. It led to a short stint working for Imagine as a freelance reader while I was a receptionist, and some other places as well. So I mean, but again, those deals don't necessarily exist. So I have a hard time telling people, how to do what I did. So.
What is the best script you read as a reader?
Basic Instinct. To the page. The reason it sold for the money it sold, and the reason people got so excited is because you didn't have to rewrite it. It was there. They did some tweaking to it, but basically Joe Esterhaus wrote this script, we got to see it, and you knew why it sold for the money it sold. And the other one was Braveheart. We developed it at MGM, and when Laddie left MGM, he was able to take 2 scripts with him, and one of them was Braveheart, and he got a deal at Paramount, and the rest is sort of history. So.
Your career has taken you all over the world. What has been your favorite place to work?
Well, I love working in the States. All right, it's easier, and by that I mean it's local-ish. I mean, I've worked as far north as Alaska. I've worked in Washington State. I've worked here before. I've worked in Arizona. I've worked in Atlanta. I've worked in New York. I've worked in Louisiana. I mean, they're all great for different reasons. LA's nice because it's home. And at the end of the day, you can go sleep in your own bed. Here for Yellowstone, I mean, I've been here since April. So now it'll be about 6-7 months by the time I go home. And this is all nice. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's the only job I know that lets me go around the world. I've been to places like East Timor. I've been to Russia. I've been to Britain. I've been to Germany, I've been to Romania, Costa Rica, Australia, New Zealand. So I mean, it's kind of great. I'd have to say, I guess of my favorite countries outside of the US, it would have to be Romania. I did Hatfields McCoys there, and I enjoyed it so much that I took Harley and the Davidsons there when I was working for Discovery. And I had never been back to a location for the second time ever. And I find it kind of interesting that both times I went to Romania, both shows were successes. Because that's it's kind of nice to have happen.
You worked with Kevin Costner and Barry Berg on Hatfields and McCoys. Did that help prepare you for working on Yellowstone?
Well, it's funny, it didn't help prep me. I mean, the experience is always the experience. But what it did was it gave me a relationship with Barry Berg and a relationship with Kevin Costner. Excuse me. The Hollywood industry is an interesting industry. My dad once laughed at me because I told him that I went to MGM, got a job as a receptionist because I wanted to become a producer. And he looked at me and says, people don't go to IBM and become receptionists if they want to become engineers. They go to school. But see, that's the big misunderstanding people have about the business in regards to the regular world. An education can get you a job almost anywhere in the regular world. And not always. I mean, it depends on your degree or whatever. But if you get an engineering degree, you can go out and get a job as an engineer. But even film school doesn't prepare you for working in this business because you don't know anything. I mean, really, film school prepares you as far as understanding the history of film, which is very important. It gives you a basic understanding of how TV shows or movies get made. And the most important thing it ever taught me was how to coil cable, because that's the one thing you have to learn how to do to become a PA. But the thing it doesn't do is teach you how to get a job. So the only thing that helps you get a job, and this does translate to other industries, but you can be unknown to IBM, come out of college with a degree of engineering, and get a job at IBM. But you can't get a job at MGM unless you know somebody, especially at an entry level. So it helps with relationships. So people who go to LA and don't know anybody, it's tough. I mean, when I came, I only knew two people. One was a guy I went to school with, and the other guy was a game show writer. He had done things like the dating game, the newlywed game, and that helped a little bit. But really what helped me was, like I said, when I got that job as a receptionist, I took it because I knew that as a receptionist, I could go anywhere in a number of different directions. But once I made that jump from receptionist to wherever it was I was going to go, that's kind of the path you get stuck in. If I had become an assistant in the marketing department, it would have been near impossible to jump over to the creative side, reading scripts, developing scripts, working with writers, directors, and all that kind of stuff. So I had to be very, very careful. So I knew what I needed to do at that point in time, which was to read scripts and get that kind of experience under my belt. So, I mean, that's it's much more about relationships. And what relationships do in Hollywood is, sure, there's the nepotism and there's the idiots who go higher, people who fail upward. We all can know those kinds of people. But really, the relationship is going to give you the ball. It's up to you to carry that ball. You can get that great. I could have become a receptionist. I could have stayed a receptionist. I could have gotten that job with Laddie and stayed a creative executive. But it's up to you to keep moving that ball forward. So after that happens, nobody's gonna, help you out. And it's not because they don't want to, it's just they may not be able to. Hollywood will kill you with kindness. Oh yeah, you're a great writer. Yeah, that script's not for me right now, but you are a great writer. And everybody, they're all trying to make a living. So.
You've had an unconventional path to get to where you are, but even with that, what advice would you give a person just starting out in this business?
Well, I know, when I was working at MGM, I could tell you how I did that. I'm not sure that really exists anymore. To some degree it does, but it's about relationships and getting to know people. It's a tougher side. But those avenues are open now because it's just not familiar to me as it was, the creative side. But you have unscripted, documentaries are a lot bigger. You've got 182 channels all producing content, scripted, factual, doc. You can find more avenues than you could back then. Back then there were basically 5 motion picture studios. Some of them had television, some of them didn't. And then you had a bunch of television studios like Lorimar and New World and that kind of thing. So it's sort of been replaced. My experience now is I've got a lot more experience doing production. So if you want to go to LA and you want to, or stay here, get a job as a PA. Do everything you're told. Don't question anything. Listen and watch and learn. And you do that enough and you'll understand where it is you want to go next. And in doing all of that, you're also building, again, it's the R word, relationships. So if you want to be a grip, you will make friends with the key grip. And the next time he has a show and he needs somebody, the chances are since he knows you and you've worked on a couple of shows with him as a PA, he's seen that you're industrious, that you work hard, you don't screw around, you get the job done, he'll give you an opportunity to get in as a grip. It may be non-union at first, but maybe the show gets turned and all of a sudden you find yourself a member of the union. If you want to work in the camera department, same thing. Sound, same thing. Makeup and wardrobe, same kind of thing. So it's about finding, again, opportunity meeting, preparation meeting opportunity. You create your own luck.
You've held titles from production supervisor, UPM, to producer. What has been your favorite and why?
I love to work. All right, so let's take that a little further, okay? I've been an extra, I've been an actor, I've been a studio executive, I've been a network executive, I've been an executive producer, a co-EP, a production manager, production supervisor, a line producer, a production accountant, a payroll accountant. Thankfully, I've never been a PA. But all of it was to gather a body of knowledge. I love what I do. If I could, trust me when I tell you this, if I could find something else in this world that I love doing as much as I love doing this and make the kind of money that I make, I would probably go do it because it's got to be easier. This business it's hard, it's complicated. On a show like Yellowstone, we've got, we're going to Montana in 2 weeks. We're taking 150, 200 people up there to shoot in Montana for 2 weeks. That's a lot of logistics. It's a lot of props, it's a lot of wardrobe. We got to take the right crew, the camera gear, we got to shuttle everything up, then we got to bring everything back down. It's a complicated show. We've got locations that are, 2 hours away. We've got locations that are here on the stage. We've got to worry about rain. We've got to worry about snow. We've got to worry about hot weather. The thing about this business, I put myself through college as a graphic designer, and I still love doing art and stuff. But it kind of became mundane. The one thing I can say in the, 30 years that I've been doing this, it's never been boring. And it's never not been a challenge. And I think that's the one thing that for me kept me doing it, because it's always a challenge. You take one script, give it to 5 different directors, and you will get 5 completely different experiences. Same thing with the producers, give it to 5 producers, different experience every single time. And while the general, workflow, write the script, prep, shoot, post, deliver, is the same for every project. The devil is in the details. You got to bring, a bunch of people to Salt Lake City or to Park City, and you've got to shoot for, I've been here since April, I'll be here 6-7 months. How do you support a whole bunch of crew that have to come up here? So you got to find rooms for them. There's a cost associated with that. There's airfares, there's actors going back and forth. We've got A camera, B camera, C camera some days, and then we've also got D&E camera some days. So that's more people shuttling back and forth. Okay, so, and I'm probably going to butcher this story. Kathleen Kennedy, was producing, I believe it was the second Jurassic Park on Kauai, in Hawaii, right? And a hurricane came through, destroyed the island. And the military came in to evacuate people off the island. and Kathy Kennedy had to, mobilize her crew to basically evacuate off the island. And the military was so impressed at how efficient the crew was and how quickly they got off the island, they invited her to go lecture at the Pentagon on logistics and strategy for moving troops. So that's what crews do. To me, there's nothing more amazing than a well-oiled crew watching them work. I mean, you think about what we have to accomplish over a certain amount of time, sometimes in the weather conditions, the hours and everything else, it's kind of remarkable. And it's all to produce, in a movie, a single widget. With a TV show, it might be 10 widgets, or on some of the network shows, 22 widgets per year. And there's no guarantee that you'll come back and do the next season, but it's, in that regard, it's pretty rewarding work. I mean, it's, working in a crew situation like this, the decisions you make in the morning, you will see the end results of by the end of the day, or maybe at the latest by the end of the week. And there's something kind of invigorating about that. There's the challenge of facing these problems head on. I mean, you can't dawdle around. I mean, you've got to, something comes up, you got to fix it. There's a train moving, and it's sometimes low budget movies, not so expensive, but shows like this. Game of Thrones, for example, $15 million an hour. That's a lot of train that's moving, and you got to fix those problems because, they say that you can, throw money at problems. Well, not always, because they're not going to let you spend 15-1. You only got the 15. So, and in our situation, we've only got X amount of dollars to spend. We have to figure out the best way and the quickest way to solve a problem that doesn't cost money. So yeah, that's kind of why I keep doing it. And as far as all the different job titles, I mean, again, it was just to gather a base of knowledge, a base of experience. The difference between, what I do on set and what I do at a network or a studio is, a network or studio, I might be, I was working at Discovery for 5 years. I had anywhere from 30 to 35 shows at any given time. With this show, I got this. Working on a crew, you've got this show to worry about. But I'm at the ground level. When I'm at the network, I'm at the 30,000 foot level, so I can look at things at a bigger thing and rely on people like me or the other producers. I can rely on them to get the job done, and then I just have to ask the questions. What'd you do today? Any problems? So.
When choosing a project, which do you prefer? Television, documentaries, features?
I've done them all. I look for the opportunity. At this point in my life, I'm not choosy. And I don't mean that, growing up, as it were, if they needed me and they could only pay $1,000 a week, I was always in a position to know exactly how much money they had. And if that's what the budget could afford, that's what I got paid. It didn't matter to me what the movies were or anything else, but nowadays, it's hard to get these shows done, with all the different personalities and the egos and the personnel and just the situations of things. So I tend to drift more toward working with people that I know. It's not that I don't take jobs with people I don't know, but the ones again, it's a relationship thing. I know what I'm getting into,
Do you feel that since you have done so many different jobs on a production, it helps you relate better to all departments?
Yeah, and I've done, different job titles, different mediums. I've done unscripted, I've done game shows, I've done live shows, I've done reality shows, which are different than unscripted or docuseries. I've done documentaries, I've done feature films, I've done TV series. So yeah, there's no one set way to solve a problem, but and this is not, I like to believe that because I've worked in all these different mediums, I can offer a variety of different solutions to things, because I've seen different situations. It's not to say that a game show solution would work on a scripted TV solution, would work on a documentary. But I like to believe that a wider base of experience just gives me more depth to pull from. Sure. So.
After nearly 30 years in this industry, what's your end game?
I'm afraid it might be a little late to start a career in graphic design. Thankfully, I'm a little too old to draft these days, so I can't, the military wouldn't have me. Being a cop, which I wanted to do in high school, won't have me. Yeah, this is pretty much it.
You're stuck.
I might go back and try to find a network or studio job, because there is something, again, when you're working on a crew, you're working, minimum pretty much 12 hours a day. And it gets a little tough. Even with nice weekends, it's tough. The thing about, working at a network is you pretty much go home at 6. It's 9 to 6. I mean, it's not that you don't pick up the phone at 7 or 8 or have things you have to deal with on the weekends, but there is something of a home life. It's much more of a corporate type job. It's a different kind of team. So.
What has been the most important lesson you have learned about the film industry?
Oh, wow. Perseverance. Just, it's funny. I did Hatfields McCoys, and then for the same production, I did a reality show right after that for them. I line produced it. And I realized, I was getting a little old to be tap dancing like you have to do with a reality show. Because really you never know what you're getting that day. You kind of have a general idea of what you're going to shoot, but it's a lot of tap dancing. We had talent that wouldn't show up, that kind of thing. And I started thinking, maybe I should start looking for that network or studio job. And I started putting a resume together because I hadn't done it for a number of years. And I realized I'd had a career. And all I ever did was just work. And I never really paid much attention to it. I just kept looking for jobs and kept doing things. And, sometimes, like I said, it would be a feature. Sometimes it might be a reality show. Sometimes it was a series. I think it's just, it's having the passion to stick with it. Because I think there are probably only, 10 people that I am still in touch with from when I first, that first day as a receptionist at MGM. The period before that, I was in LA for 6 years before that. I don't know where those people are. So, a lot of people come and go. And, I know a lot of people have moved into other media type jobs. A lot of people started in different types of media jobs. So, I think there's a Calvin Coolidge quote that I cannot remember all of it for the life of me, but it's about, there are plenty of educated bums, there are plenty of unsuccessful, smart people and all that. It's really persistence and determination that are omnipotent. And I think that's probably the most important lesson, is just to keep at it. Just keep working. Do it, do the best job you can, and learn as much as you can. And to me, it's always about learning things, and evolving and growing and adapting to things. So,
when you're not on a project and you're back in Los Angeles, what do you like to do? Any hobbies?
Yeah, I do photography. I do some art stuff. I still keep my hands in that. Between shows, it depends on how much time between shows. Sometimes I've been out of work for 3 weeks. I've been out of work for 7 months. So it really just depends. If I start getting a little stir crazy, I'll start making up trips to go do. And typically it'll be, I'll go out to Joshua Tree for a couple of days and take Milky Way pictures. Or I'll drive up to the Bay Area, see my family. I've got a brother who lives up there. And along the way, I'll stop at Big Sur and take, ocean pictures. I do a thing with bubble wrap where I paint with it. And there's a project I'll probably start working on when I get back home this time. But, so I do that. I've got a number of different things that I do on the art side that if something sparks me, I'll start playing with it, making it work. So, but, this is kind of it. I've always, I got out of the creative side of this show. I do, like physical production now, but I still want to keep my creative needs fulfilled. And it's just for me. It's not really for anything else. So,
lastly, what are your thoughts on the Utah Film Studios?
The Utah Film Studios were an incredible surprise. To find a facility that is this nice and modern, has all the amenities we need, in all places, Park City was completely unexpected. I'm happy to say I believe that the show has a season 4. We'll be coming back here. It's got more than enough space to do everything we need, plus a little extra. It's kind of wonderful. To be honest, it's almost like finding Castel Studios in Romania, because you wouldn't expect. I went to Moscow once and looked at Mosfilm, and those are stages from like the 1920s and 30s. I expected to find the same thing in Romania, and they were like brand new. So to find these here that are brand new, ready and equipped and ready to go, is great. I mean, it's a perfect location for us.